Hi, Matt Dixon with Purple Patch Fitness here, and I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about a subject that is really appropriate for this time of the year, and it's really directed at athletes that so far in the season have been following a path that maybe isn't for them, and they feel like things are not going well, and they're starting to look for a change. So are you going down a path that you feel like it's not yielding the results relative to your hard work that you're getting in? Are you sort of feeling a sense of frustration and almost getting to the point that yes, you're training hard, but the results are not what you deserve? It might be time for a change. And the reason I say might is I think that before you just make a knee-jerk reaction and try and look at a different approach or a different coaching methodology, I think the first thing that you have to do is self-reflect a little bit. And I think that you have to actually look a little inward and really try and understand what are the areas that are frustrating you in your performance or maybe your relationship. And are there things that you can do to improve it and still salvage a good season? The answer to that might be yes, and you should stick the path if that's the case. If after doing the self-reflection and really looking inward, if you still feel like you're frustrated, the season is not over, and I would say that now is not such a bad way or bad time to make that change. But with that said, you have to ensure that you approach any change that you do in mid-season in the appropriate way. So today I want to tell you a little bit about how I would approach that change. The first thing that I would do, and we have to bear in mind that as a coach, whenever I talk to athletes, I nearly always talk about the long-term progression, the journey, the patience that it takes to really yield big results. Ensure that you can create consistency. So all of these big high-level lens sort of viewing that you look at progression over not just the season but multiple seasons. The only time that that doesn't apply is if you decide to make a change and you actually join a different methodology or shift the way that you approach your training and your performance in mid-season. Because for me, that's an important shift where in fact, because you haven't gone on the journey in this season and you're making the shift, it's really critical that you look at this in a very myopic lens and you actually say, okay, what can we do as an intervention between now and the race or races that I have for the rest of the year? And that's a very different approach. So in fact, if you're thinking about making a change mid-season, it's the one time that you go myopic and you say, you know what, this is intervention time. The goal there for the coach and the athlete is to actually say, okay, what have I done so far? What has been working? What are the benefits that I've yielded from the hard work that maybe you haven't yielded the positive results from so far, but hopefully you've done some hard work. What have we done so far this season and seasons before? And what do we need to do now to leverage that and try and fine tune and sharpen it so that we can maximize everything that we can get out of this season? Once you finish this season, so you go through the back half of this year, and at the time of shooting, this is a July video. So once you finish July, August, September, maybe into October, and you finish this season, that's a really good time for you to then take stock, look back at sort of the intervention period and say, okay, now what I want to do is I want to set my next year or multi-year journey and progression from here, where I truly do want to embrace the progression and the journey as we go from that. So it's a very different lens that you're looking through, and I think it's a really important shift to go from there. So what are the benefits for changing right now as your approach? Well, let's actually sort of go through 2 or 3 key things. The first thing is, if you're an approach that you're convinced is a failing approach, that you're either getting frustrated, that you're not yielding results, that you're maybe getting hit with injuries, there is no benefit to actually carrying on that path for the rest of the season. I think it's equally important to understand that this season is not over. So while you might have had some challenges or some disruptions or some disappointments up till now, it is still only the middle of the season, and we still have a whole back half that you can really yield good results. So I think that action is important, and really I see this action as a no-risk proposition, because if you're going down a path of dissatisfaction or frustration, making the shift can actually, even without actually doing much of an intervention, can be a massive emotional release. You can really embrace a sort of a honeymoon period of a change in a positive sense, and you have a no-risk proposition where you make this intervention and you actually get to learn a new approach without actually having any risk of any sort of progression of building up the season. So the one way that you do look longer lens is to say, I'm going to do it now, treat it as an intervention, and at the end of the year, I already know the workouts, the strategy, and the plan of the coach. I already understand the methodology, and now as I build my next season, I can hit the ground running rather than hit the ground limping. And I think that's a really, really sort of key differential of the time to do it. Whether it's with Purple Patch or whether it's with someone else, this is the time, if you are frustrated, if you have got to those crossroads, and following, and I think this is important, following some self-reflection and some really honest feedback to yourself and to maybe your coach or your methodology that you're using. If you decide after that that it's time to change, this is the time. The season's not over, you can do it, but it is the one time in your sort of endurance performance evolution that you get to close it in, go myopic and say, let's go intervention time. March forward to the rest of the year, try and yield some positives and some good results, and then from there we can build the empire from there. I hope that helps and gives you a little bit of perspective. As ever, any questions that you have, ping us at Plan Support at Purple Patch Fitness, and we'll go from there. Cheers, take care.